Steel Curtain Network.
What's up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans? Oh, turn the loop off. The music. Oh my God.
Steel
I had the loop off. Someone else must have hit it.
I wasn't near it.
I didn't touch it. All right. Welcome, Steeler fans, to a very perfect preseason finale postgame show. I'm Jeff Hartman, joined by Dave Schofield and Bryan Davis. Dave, what's going on?
Hey, I kept saying it couldn't really, it had to go, it had nowhere to go but down. Wrong, man. They just kept rolling. That first team, could you improve on the first two games? No, but hey, at least they kept up the status quo, man. Great stuff.
Absolutely. Bryan Davis took a week off last week, but he's back. What's up, Bryan?
Oh man, I am feeling it. I am loving it. And we could talk about what this means for the regular season all we want, but you know what we're not going to be talking about? We're not going to be talking about a 6-0 preseason streak like that's all they do in Purple Land. So we're not talking about that. We're talking about real football.
Absolutely. And, it's funny because I was talking to Dave about something that wasn't even really pertaining to the Steelers the other day on the phone. And we started talking about preseason football. And Dave said what he was talking about on Stat Geek and how it's unprecedented. He goes, this isn't going to happen again. I was like, well, it could, but it's just not likely. The expectation shouldn't be there. And then boom, what happens? The Steelers offense goes out and they just do exactly what they've done the entire preseason. 2 drives, 2 touchdowns. I believe those just 2, right? This week,
yeah.
2 drives. And the first one started deep in their own end. It was beautiful, but let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Let's do knee-jerk reactions. Dave, you go ahead first. What's your knee-jerk reaction?
Well, I mean, once again, you're like, can it get any better? How about before the Steelers, they hadn't scored a touchdown from the red zone because they were so efficient. They were scoring from beyond the red zone. This time, first team offense into the red zone twice, 2 touchdowns. I mean, that's just another box to check off, that they still checked off boxes of things that they hadn't accomplished yet. And they continued to accomplish, but they didn't check off the, have to punt box. They didn't have to check off the settle for a field goal box. They didn't check off reach a 4th down box. It never happened. They put the ball in the touchdown zone.
Yeah. They never had to ask Big Press to come out and do anything but hold for an extra point.
That's right.
Bryan Davis, what's your knee-jerk reaction?
My knee-jerk reaction goes back to probably about 4 weeks ago when training camp was starting, and we all made the comment when I said, this team looks like they mean business. It doesn't look like a team that is, looking for shameless self-promotion. They just look like they've got a chip on their shoulder and they're ready to go. And it seemed to keep on going. And I tell you what, you guys could be disrespecting this guy all you want. When I say disrespecting, you could be, down on this guy, but I love Colin Cowherd even more for making comments like he made about Kenny Pickett is not great. Because when you make those comments, Kenny Pickett hears it. And I think he showed that he really could be great. He could be accurate. And what Mike Tomlin was saying about him in the post-game press conference was amazing. I think Najee Harris is saying all the things or hearing all the things that are being said about Jaylen Warren has passed him up. And all that. And, he goes out and he averaged 4.5 and looked pretty good. So I am getting ahead of myself, but knee-jerk reaction, this team means business. And that chip grows. And, hey, keep on disrespecting these guys.
Yeah, let's get this super chat up on the screen here. Case and Wright gives us $2. Says, driving, can't chat much. Great game. Let's go. Thank you very much for the tip. We appreciate it. My knee-jerk reaction, everyone's talking about the offense right now, but I was really impressed with the defense. They held Atlanta to like 8 yards for the majority of the first half. I think the last drive, maybe that Atlanta, they actually got a first down and moved the ball a little bit. Landon Roberts looked like he was shot out of a cannon on more than one occasion. Just really, these guys look like they're I think complimentary football is the best way to put it. And they're playing good complimentary football. And we're going to break this game down just like we do all of the post-game shows that we do. We start by looking at the statistics. We look at the box score. We always start on offense, and we always start with the quarterback. So let's talk about the quarterback. That would be one Kenneth Shane Pickett finishes 4 for 4, 86 yards, a 21.5 average, had 2 big passes. One to Deontay Johnson on third down. The other one, obviously, to George Pickens, which got the ball down to the 2-yard line. He had a great game. Rating was 118.8. Mitch Trubisky finished 7 of 9 for 54. Mason Rudolph, 3 of 7 for 15. And poor Tanner Morgan, 1 for 4 with a negative 4 yards. So, all right, Dave, let's talk about quarterbacks. What did you think?
Oh, my goodness. He falls off the cliff again. Kenny Pickett can't even throw a touchdown. And I mean, his rating plummets to 118.8. Of course, once again, I'm joking like last week.
Yeah, some people didn't get it. So I'm glad I said it last week.
Yeah. So, I mean, what more could you ask for? Because you rounded out the offense. It wasn't about, oh, let's see Kenny Pickett go out there and throw for a bunch of touchdowns. No, let's see Kenny Pickett connect with Deontay Johnson on a third down, dropping the ball into him. Great. Let's see him throw another fantastic ball for an even more fantastic catch from George Pickens. That's what more can you ask from him other than to say, just keep doing what you're doing when it counts.
Yeah. No, that's all there is to it. I thought Mitch Trubisky looked better too. But Bryan, what do you think about the quarterback play?
I thought all the way around it looked pretty good. And I realize you said poor Tanner Morgan, but Tanner Morgan does not have a chance with the way Mason Rudolph and Mitch Trubisky have been playing this preseason, but he has a chance to make a practice squad. He threw a pretty nice ball in the end zone towards the end of the game that might have put the Pittsburgh Steelers over 30, but it ended up being, the receiver was out of bounds. I believe Crookshank, or I'm not sure. I can't even remember what his name was.
Yeah, it's something like that.
but I thought the quarterback play was good all the way around. There was a particular play that I'm gonna kind of hold off and mention a little bit later when we talk about the receivers. But one that really stuck out to me, and Mitch threw a ball and converted a third down towards the end of the first half. I'll talk about that a little bit later, but really, I like the way that these guys conducted themselves all preseason, especially tonight again.
Yeah, and I think about Tanner Morgan, and when you look at last year with Chris Oladokun and the way that he was handled as the fourth quarterback, and Tanner Morgan got a lot of snaps this preseason. And I think Mike Tomlin on more than one occasion said more than they were technically planning for, based on the fact that when your starting offense goes out against Tampa Bay, 1 drive, 1 touchdown. Okay, get off the field. Buffalo, 2 drives, 2 touchdowns. Okay, we were going to play a little bit longer, but get off the field. And then you go into this game, 2 drives, 2 touchdowns. All right, what the hell? Get off the field. Let's get him out there. So you have Tanner Morgan getting some very valuable reps. Will it equate in a practice squad spot?
Are you talking with the Steelers or just in general?
I'm thinking more Steelers. I don't see a need to keep a quarterback on the practice squad.
No, and people talked about this last year and other years. Your third quarterback, now that even though they'll be inactive, but will be in uniform, you're going to even have a bit of a need to try to get them at least a couple snaps in practice, perhaps. I don't see what a fourth quarterback does. I don't see teams keeping quarterbacks on the practice squad across the NFL, because the only ones that normally did were ones that only kept 2 on the 53. You can't do that if you want to dress the third. I think you're going to see 3 on the 53, and it's going to be very rare, other than maybe needing a quarterback to specifically emulate a particular quarterback in preparation, like the Steelers sometimes do to prepare for the Ravens. I don't see you going to see. I don't think there'll be many quarterbacks on practice squads this year.
You're probably right. Okay, let's talk about let's leave the quarterbacks for a second. Let's go to the pass catchers. So we're talking about George Pickens, 1 for 35 on 1 target. Deontay Johnson, 1 for 33, 1 target. Connor Hayward, 2 for 27 on 2 targets. And then a bunch of guys with single digits. It really, after the starters left, it definitely turned into a ground game. You could tell that Mike Tomlin was just trying to probably end the game. Let's get out of here without any injuries. But in the meantime, pass catchers, Dave, what did you think?
Nothing stood out in a bad way in the top units, not just the top unit. I mean, my goodness, only 2 people had more than 2 targets, and that was running back Greg Bell had 3, and Cruikshank had 3 and didn't catch any of them. That's all. They spread the ball around, and the Steelers seemed to only throw the ball almost when they had to in this game. There seemed to be a little bit more focus on the run game, but yet you got quality play from your receivers.
Bryan, what are your thoughts on the pass catchers?
Well, you know what? There was not an incompletion thrown until, and I know this is the passers, but bear with me on this. There was not an incompletion until late in the second quarter, and that was a very good play made on the receiver. Right there. But everything else that I saw from these guys, they're catching things that are coming their way. You don't feel like you're having you feel like this receiving unit has grown, and they answered one of the questions too, and they're scrappy as well. You know, the big question was, can the Pittsburgh Steelers do anything but that dink and dunk Matt Canada short game? And I think they've proved it a lot this year. I mean, when I'm watching before the game and I'm seeing criticism about Kenny Pickett, and the only criticism is, well, we haven't really seen him throw in a 2-minute drill. But you got to see him throw in a 92-yard a drive to start the game after they got put back, and those receivers had a lot to do with it. I saved this from earlier. I loved the way Gunnar Olszewski played on that. It was 3rd down.
Oh, that was a great move.
He battled for the sticks.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I think it's time to kind of put those 2 fumbles from last year on kickoff returns out of your mind and see that this guy has come back with a lot of fire and intensity, and as a 5th or 6th receiver in different options, that's something you can get excited about. The other thing with the pass catchers, and I've noticed this entire preseason that there's a concerted effort to get Connor Hayward the football. And he's doing everything with it. He looks very good as a receiver out there too. There are so many weapons in so many different ways. If this guy's covered, this guy's got to be open. I mean, it's going to be hard to double cover any of these guys. This is more complete of a team and even a wide receiving or pass catching stable that we've seen in a long time.
When you're talking about the Gunnar Olszewskis on this team and the Connor Hayward, the way they use them is definitely noteworthy, especially at Connor Hayward. And we're going to talk about the running game here in a second. But my gosh, Connor Hayward had 4 carries in this game. I'm watching the first half thinking, but didn't have that on my bingo card. Connor Hayward getting I guess a lion's share of carries throughout a drive. But there's a reason why they're doing that. They want to see, is he capable? Maybe they only keep 2 running backs, or if they keep a 3rd in Anthony McFarland, they can have him inactive on game day, and Connor Hayward in an emergency, can he carry the ball? Like, there's reasons why they're doing this stuff. And you have to also figure about the wide receivers. And this is something Dave and I do every single week. And we'll have our final prediction coming out on Monday. How many wide receivers are going to keep? You know, there's no guarantee they'll keep 6. If Connor Hayward is a very versatile piece, they might just keep 5. And in which case, you know, is Gunnar O on the outside looking in? I don't know. That's tough. That's really tough. Dave, any final thoughts before we move on to the runners?
So this includes tight ends, right?
It does.
Okay. Was kind of bummed to see Matt Washington not get a target.
Yeah.
But man, oh man, did he have some really nice blocking. He sure did. Several instances. Now, I mean, there's the occasional one that gets through. I mean, Zach Gentry whiffed on a block too, which caused a run that I thought up the middle. At first I wanted to blame on the line, but no, it was Gentry that let his guy beat him to the inside. But that's sometimes tough for a tight end. But man, that guy had some nice blocking.
Yeah. Bryan, any final thoughts here before we move on to the running game?
I'm pleased. I am definitely pleased with all the receivers.
All right. Before we go on, I do want to ask you all, were you all kind of bummed that Atlanta didn't play any of their starters, Dave?
I mean, of course, because you would have liked to have seen the Steelers do the same thing against their ones. But once again, you're in the preseason, you play the nameless gray faces,
Yeah.
whether they're a 1 or whether they're a 6 across from you. You just got to go out there and do your thing. And that's what's encouraging, is that the Steelers did their thing regardless of who was lined up against them.
Bryan, what about you when you heard that the Falcons were going to be resting their starters?
I was very bummed, but exactly what Dave said, and something that somebody on the NFL Network at halftime said. I think it was Mariucci. I think he mentioned something precision.
Yeah.
You got to see the Steelers be precise and carry out their game plan, and it really doesn't matter at that point. It's that they're able to carry out a game plan, and is anybody complaining about Matt Canada? And I think that's really what you're seeing right now, that this game plan has evolved. The system has evolved. Now it might be 6 weeks from now and we're complaining about it again. But right now you can see that this is a much different offense than what we've seen. So everything that we're talking about on offense, I'm pleased with, and I'm excited because they changed the narrative of what everybody thought they were on offense and thought they were going to fall back into being again, to being more of a complete offense. And there's explosive plays. When you're being able to throw downfield, there were some deep balls in this game and they were completed. And Kenny was 8 for 8. Mitch at one point was 6 for 6 until the incompletion. Wow. This is a different passing game.
When I thought about the Falcons, everything Bryan you said is accurate. I mean, when I thought about the Falcons and I saw the report before the game that they were resting their starters, I kept on thinking about how the Steelers are viewing Kenny Pickett going into year 2 and how they're like, we need to get this guy reps. We need to get him plenty of looks in the preseason. We want to get him in rhythm. And then on the other side of the field, you have Desmond Ridder, who was drafted in the same draft class, not in the same round, but in the same draft class, who did not play as much as Kenny Pickett last season. And they're just giving him the whole game off. I'm like, man, this is just talk about two different approaches. There's not one right and what wrong. And Mike Tomlin after the game said, I don't care about what the Joneses do. I just care about what my team does. And they went out and they did the job. So good for them. Occam's Ox gives us $1.99. He said, as buttoned up of a preseason as I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. It really is. Absolutely. And then Leo gives us $4.99. There's no message.
Now, if Leo follows up, I'll bring it up. Follow up with your next comment, and I'll bring it up, Leo.
Thank you for the tip. We appreciate it. So let's go to the running game. We talked about how this was a very running-focused game based on the fact that it was 24-0 at halftime. Just happens to be the final score of the game. Anthony McFarland leads the Steelers. 10 carries, 55 yards. Xavier Valade, 7 for 26. Mitch, 1 for 24. Najee Harris, 4 for 18. Jaylen Warren, 2 for 14. And then a whole bunch of guys less than that. And like I said, Connor Hayward did get 4 carries for 11 yards. So, gentlemen, what did you think about the running game? We can throw in the offensive line here as well if you'd like. Dave, we'll start with you.
To me, what really sums up the running game, I'm trying to find it specifically, is on that first drive that the Steelers had, that you had Jaylen Warren for 6 yards, then Najee Harris for 12 yards. Like those back-to-back, chunk runs of those two guys. That was after the next 2 plays after the Deontay Johnson patch. You could tell they were really wanting to work a little bit with the run game, and it paid off. So it wasn't perfect because there was a run for no gain in there, but my goodness, you saw it from various running backs at different points of the game. I don't have the concerns that I did last week when you're like, oh man, the running game after with the next offensive line just wasn't the same. It wasn't as much of a fallout. No, trust me, it wasn't the same as it was with the number 1 guys out there, but it wasn't as stark of a difference as we saw last week. So, I mean, in all, looking at those numbers, good stuff.
Yeah, For sure. Before I throw it over to Bryan, Master P gives us $4.99. Hey, if you guys didn't get the comment in, get it in. We'll
Hold
get it
on.
up on the
I
screen.
know we got one from that. It skipped on
Leo.
me. Hold on. Did we get the Leo one?
Leo Canales got in. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
I've got the Master P comment.
All right,
The next one up here.
Let's get Leo up first.
Okay.
He said, just love the show and what you all do, but okay, knowing Mason played with our 2s and 3s, how do you feel about his performance? All right, let's talk about this quickly. Dave, what did you think about Mace?
I think he's going to be one of, if not the best third options in the NFL this year.
I agree, 100%. Bryan, what are your thoughts on Mason Rudolph?
A lot of people are comfortable if Mason Rudolph is the number 2 guy. And so, like Dave said, if that's your number 3 and that's the option you have, if you have to break that glass and bring him in, hey, everybody was prepared to bring him in second if they had to. So that's your number 3. Take him and laugh and just say you're deep at that position.
For sure. Let's get Master P's comment here. He said, if this team stays healthy, they really have the potential to be something special. And I agree with that 100%. But Bryan, let's throw it over to you as it pertains to the running game. Dave talked about it. Give you your shot. Go ahead.
I'm going to go real quick on this. It just reminded me of Franco Harris, Rocky Blyer, and Sidney Thornton when you had games where they all had touchdowns. Sure, this is preseason, but Ant Mac, Jaylen Warren, and Najee Harris all had touchdowns in that first half. And that's something just beautiful to see. I really, and I think those guys are in concert with each other. I think they root for each other. Of course there's competition, but they're laughing all the way to the end zone. It also reminded me, I just said it reminded me of those guys, but it also reminded me in that magical season of 2005 when you saw Jerome Bettis, Veron Haynes, and Willie Parker all doing that high step during warmups, and when they were always all together. It just seems like this is a very cohesive unit as well. And you're deep there. You don't want any one of these guys to go down. But if they go down, if you have one of those surprises like you had Monday night in November in Indianapolis, that the other guys can do the job as well.
Running game definitely looked a lot stronger. I was very critical of it last week. Like Dave mentioned, after that Jaylen Warren 60-plus yard touchdown run, I felt like it kind of inflated the numbers more than it actually was. But this was a good rushing performance. But Dave, let's finish up the offense, talk about the offensive line, whether it's pass pro, whether it is run blocking. What were your thoughts?
Well, I'll say this. I thought Broderick Jones had his best game of the preseason, and I thought he did well the other two. A lot of people wanted to read into the fact that Dan Moore Jr. was out there at right tackle with the second unit. I'm not looking into that because you have to have a tackle on the 53-man roster that could play either position. So you had to do that. I'm not looking into what they're going to do there at all. I just think it's great that they have good options at tackle. James Daniels not playing in this game was surprising. Coach Tomlin said afterwards it was a day-to-day issue. I hope that's the case. But as much as we were all over him the last two games, Kendrick Green did just fine out there at right guard with the first unit. He was not the liability that he was the last two games. So I'm going to call him out when he plays terrible, and when he doesn't, I'm going to say that he doesn't, and he didn't. So that's interesting. He actually, kind of got himself into the mix if he's going to be available at multiple positions on the offensive line. We'd written him off the 53, but then you turn around and do something like that, you got to at least get back into the conversation. But other than that, I was satisfied with what the line was doing. I mean, especially with the ones. Isaac Seumalo you talk about an ad in free agency. My goodness. The only thing that he can do different now is to do it during the regular season because he hasn't had a chance to do that yet. But my goodness, the two games he's played, it's been really something.
He is a technician for sure, Sayamalo. Bryan, what was your thought on the offensive line?
I thought very solid, thought very cohesive. They were 5 men that acted as one. There, it was like moving parts. You know what it reminded me of? Foosball. They were a foosball team out there, and when they're all moving as one, you've got to enjoy that. So I'm not talking water boy and Kathy Bates saying foosball, Mrs. Boucher saying foosball.
You're gonna lose all your foosball games and your foosball friends.
But that's a good foosball team to have when you are one unit. I mean, when it's 5 guys acting as one, that's winning football, and I hope it continues.
Absolutely. Let's get this super chat here on the screen. Tom Muir, or Tom Plays Games, gives a $3. He said, not $3 for 3 wins. Not yet. But we appreciate the tip no matter what, Tom. Thank you very much. All right, folks, we're done with the offense. We're going to take a quick break on the audio side. You're going to want to stay tuned because when we come back from the break, we have some details on a really freaking awesome giveaway that we are doing at Fans First Sports Network. If you're watching live on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, don't go anywhere. We're not going anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, Steeler fans, welcome back. Right before the break, I talked about how we're going to be giving the details on this giveaway. So this might be the first time you're hearing it. This is an appropriate time to talk about this because we have over 330 people watching us live right now. And the giveaway is pretty simple, but it's also really awesome. What Fans First Sports Network? We are a part of Fans First Sports Network. In case you're someone that does not pay attention to what we do in the offseason, well, we are no longer a part of that old site, that old group, that old community. We have started a new entity of Steel Curtain Network at Fans First Sports Network. So listen, you're a fan of an NFL team. You're all here to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Well, Fans First Sports Network is giving away 4 free tickets to any Week 1 NFL game of your choice, valued up to $5,000. I will say that again. 4 free tickets to any Week 1 NFL game of your choice, valued up to $5,000. So let me break this down for you. We all know what Week 1 game you would want to go to, right? You'd want to see that home opener, the first time since Antonio Brown karate kicked a punter in the face at Acrisure Stadium. You could get the most expensive, maybe some really premium seats for upwards of $5,000 for free. What do you have to do? Go to contest.fansfirstsports.com, fill out the appropriate information. That's it. You're in. Go check it out. Again, contest.fansfirstsports.com, fill out the appropriate information, and you are entered. You can enter up until September 4th. September 4th. It would be pretty cool. We can't win it because we're a part of the company, but it'd be pretty freaking cool if a Steeler fan won it and got to get some pretty sweet seats for that game in San Fran. Dave, what are your thoughts on the giveaway? Anything?
That's as big as you can get from anything that we've ever been associated with.
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, for those of you that say it, oh man, I really wish you could win that. What else you doing? Yeah, we will do the survivor pool again later on. We'll get to that later, but this is a huge thing. This is huge. There's no reason for you to not go there right now and enter. I mean, come on, people, get to it.
Yes. Bryan, what are your thoughts? Anything?
Those are pretty good seats too for $5,000. So absolutely. I really think that this is something that, man, I almost put in my resignation with Fans First Sports Network just to join this. And then I realized that I'd probably lose, but I just thought about something like we win. We all win here at Fans First Sports Network with all of you joining in. But remember, Steeler fans, just, join like crazy. Go ahead, enter like crazy. Get in there and enter. Do you want a Browns fan winning it? You can.
Ugh.
Do you want a Bengals fan? Yeah, they can do it. We've got a Bengals affiliate. We at Fans First Network, we have a Ravens affiliate as well. And that's great because they're all a part of the family, but we know what Steel Curtain Nation is all about. So go ahead in and represent like crazy.
And for those watching us live, you can see that web link right there at the bottom of the screen, scrolling across contest.fansfirstsports.com to enter. All right, let's get to some super chats here. Andrew Palladino gives us $9.99. Same as the last game. The first 10-ish minutes of this one was flawless, play after play. I couldn't believe what I was watching. The dog cam caught all of my reactions. Stay tuned for a compilation. That will be pretty good.
Could we put that on the Fans First Twitter if you send that to us?
Sure, if he sends it to me, I'll absolutely share. Yeah, for sure. And let's go to Tom Muir again. Gives us $5. He said the stats say we aren't the champs unless history changes, but we changed history in 2009. So there is that. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. I'm looking forward to this season. I really am excited. This is a tough layoff, a really tough layoff, but still, it is what it is. We're going to be ready. We'll have everything for you right here at the Steel Curtain Network. All right, let's talk about the defense. They pitch a shutout. Now, granted, it wasn't against starters. We talked about that in the first half of the show, but let's just talk about some different aspects of the defense. It's a little bit more difficult. We'll talk about the starting defense first, just as a collective group. We saw them for about some of them, like Alex Highsmith, played just shy of a quarter. Not that was that much because Atlanta gained like 8 yards at that time. But Dave, what were your thoughts on the starting defense?
Just overall starting defense?
Yeah, just in general.
Just in general. Got it done in both phases. I mean, my goodness. I mean, negative 2 yards through the first quarter of offense that they gave up. Yeah, that's I don't know. I mean, they just looked shot out of a cannon from the very first play. It was fantastic.
Yeah. So were there any particular players that stuck out to you that?
I mean, Landon Roberts looks like he shot out of a cannon from the very first play. I mean, TJ Watt, I'd love to see how many snaps he actually played, but to then come in and get a sack. You're still saying starter, so I gotta reserve some other names for later. But I mean, my goodness, it was just it was like men playing against boys out there. And yes, you could say, oh, it wasn't their starters, but these are guys that made an NFL roster. These are players that many of them weren't playing in the XFL or the USFL because they were already on a 90-man roster. So just to see them go out there and do what they do was great.
All right, Brian, what about you?
So in 6 quarters of play, and I'm just talking about first half alone, they gave up 7 points, and they really didn't give up 7 points against Buffalo late in the second half because there was a very short field to deal with because of a turnover. So, I mean, they basically pitched shutouts the entire way. TJ was doing TJ things again. You have to feel great about how he looked there. You know, everybody's talking about Landon Roberts. I don't do this very often, but I'm going to do it now. I have been crying for this guy ever since last year when I thought that Brian Flores would bring him in, because I've loved him since he was a Patriot, and I don't love many Patriots. I just thought ever since I saw this guy, I thought he was a Steeler, and he became a Steeler late in the off season this year. I mean, it was before camp, but it wasn't one of those early signings. So I love the fact that they brought in E-Rob. I think he is one of those guys that he's coming in without fanfare, but you're going to love him. This is not John Bostic. This is a different type of player, and he's played in very good defenses for a long time, not just New England, but Miami as well. I'm really glad to see him, and I thought what I saw of Joey Porter in that first half, again, I thought he looked solid. Somebody here said, did you notice it seems like they're throwing away from him quite a bit? And yeah, they are. You saw that there was one penalty against him, but he's played solid. I don't even know if we're considering him a starter at this point. We might not be, but I like everything that I saw from them. This is going to be special. And remember, you did not have Cam Hayward playing in this game as well. And now you can go ahead. If I'm playing devil's advocate, it's a lot easier to say that you're going to see precision from an offense playing against the nameless gray faces. But with the defense, you expect more dominance, almost like those strike games of 1987 when you had some guys having teams in there that had a lot of starters in there and guys that still had scab players in there. So, I mean, that's all. I mean, you can definitely say that, but for me, I just see guys doing their job.
Yeah, well said. For when I think about the defense, there's certain times like Landon Roberts jumped off the screen because he's making splash plays in the backfield. I'll tell you a guy that showed up for me, at least in just spurts, but I was really happy to see him even making some plays. It's DeMarvin Leal. You know, he's a guy that a lot of times, whether you're talking about Cam or Larry Ogunjobi, or maybe it's Keanu Benton, who's a shiny new toy on the defensive front. Sometimes DeMarvin Leal, because he's a tweener, you know. He played on the edge last year, and Dave talked about this a lot in the offseason. How do they view DeMarvin Leal? I've seen him have some really nice plays this year. I think it's great. Isaiah Loudermilk has looked better. The depth there is real, and Mike Tomlin talked about that in his press conference it was Tuesday this week, that he talked about how, hey, look, if they have tough decisions to make, that means they put together a pretty good 90-man offseason roster, and they're going to have some tough decisions to make. But I was impressed with DeMarvin Leal. Let's talk about some of the other players, though, that might have had a pretty good performance that need us to discuss them in some way, shape, or form. When you talk about a player like Nick Herbig, continues to make plays. He had 3 tackles, 3 solo, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, and 1 quarterback hit. A Landon Roberts stat line, he had 2 tackles for losses, a very mirrored stat line there. The Steelers eventually had a total of 5 sacks, and they took the ball away at critical times. So, we can talk about specific players. Let's talk about, preseason is so difficult because it's really just, it's kind of like a mixed bag of goods into what they're facing and all that stuff. So, Dave, is there any other players that you wanted to mention on the defensive side of the ball as it pertains to guys that played well, areas of the defense that you thought did better than expected, anything at this point? Go ahead.
Well, I thought it was interesting that the Steelers only had 1 pass defense, and that was the one that Shannon Sullivan knocked down at the line of scrimmage. But there was something that I put out there on Twitter when it comes to something with the Steelers. A lot of people were talking about the battle for slot corner between Shannon Sullivan and Elijah Riley. I don't think it has to be an either or on the 53-man roster, because Elijah Riley's not a cornerback; he's a safety. And Shannon Sullivan's a cornerback. By having one be one and one be the other, you're not having 2 of your cornerbacks being just slot guys. Pulling one from each place actually makes it to where there's room for both players on this team. But I mean, some of the times when it comes to the secondary, you're not seeing guys making plays is a good thing, like a Patrick Peterson out there doing his thing and not having to make a play because they're not even getting the ball in his. I mean, my goodness, the one time it was at the sideline. He almost even had a interception, but it was already out of bounds. Things of that nature. So I thought it was good team play all around.
Okay, what about you, Brian? Talk about the defense.
Everything that I saw, I was just impressed with. And then when we get into other players, that aren't starting, but everybody wants to talk about it, so I'm just going to say it. Yeah, Nick Herbig. And sure, he had a sack, but one thing where he didn't make the play, there was something that I noticed with Herbig on that defense that shows me he's going to be special, is he has great closing speed. He had one right after his sack. He came off the edge again and chased the quarterback down the middle, and the quarterback went for a slide. And it was funny because he just he almost got him, and he was coming off the edge, and he was evaded, excuse me. And then next thing you know, boom, He's so close to making that tackle too. If he didn't slide, he would have tackled him because he was closing in on him. So there is we haven't seen the depth on this team on this defense in such a long time. Like I said, you don't want anybody to go down, but you have a situation where you could spell some guys. Remember early in TJ's career, we saw him a lot with the oxygen mask late in games, and because he was out there trying to do everything. TJ and Highsmith don't have to do everything now. So that's the amazing thing. You have 3 linebackers, inside linebackers, and a 4th in Marcus Robinson, who's, that's a deep group now too, where this was everything that we were still worried about before the preseason and training camp started. Even Dave just brought up Shannon Sullivan and brought up Elijah Riley. Those guys are guys that we weren't really talking about. In fact, nobody made a big deal over Shannon Sullivan signing whatsoever when he came in. But now you're looking at these guys and you're like, wow, they're deep all the way around. And I saw somebody say it in the live chat here. It was something about Carl Dunbar saying somebody's going to get cut. Of a high quality defensive lineman that can play on an NFL team is going to lose his job with the Steelers. So when you see all of that and you see everybody the Steelers have on that defense, you've got to sit back and smile and hope that the sun keeps shining on them, because they could be special. They could evoke. I'm not saying they're evoking the 1970s, but they can evoke 2008, 2009, 2010 real well.
Absolutely. Let's get this. Is a good question here from Justin. He gives us $4.99. He said, so who gets number 26, McFarland or Quan Alexander? This is interesting.
I don't think Quan Alexander wants 26.
That's what I was wondering.
He came in so late. He's going to have to wait for, get him a better linebacker number.
It's if one opens up, I would imagine one would. Brian, you're the numbers guy. What do you think?
Yeah, there's going to be one in the 90s probably opening up. But you know what? I could even see him coming in and taking number 5. Something. He seems like a 1-digit guy. He was before. I know he was number what was he, number 9 at his last stop or something like that. He's not going to get. He was either 8 or 9. He's not getting 8. But McFarland, I think this being his 3rd season, or is this his 4th? I believe it's his. Well, he was 20. So this is his 4th season, right? Yeah. 2020 he was drafted?
Pretty sure.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so this being his 4th season, I don't think that you can ask him to give that up with Quan being the newcomer, and I don't think the Minister of Quan, which one of my favorite nicknames, I don't think it's going to matter. He's all about love.
Good stuff. Now, Dave, let me ask you, because you might know off the top of your head, do you know when the roster cut down date is?
Yeah, it's Tuesday.
So Tuesday, is it 4 p.m.?
4 p.m., the 29th. Yep.
So to give everyone the kind of the lay of the land. So it's Thursday night, and the Steelers, there's only 2 games tonight. Whole slate of games Friday, big slate Saturday, 1 game on Sunday. Tuesday at 4 p.m. is when they have to cut down to the 53. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't cut down earlier. I know in the past they've actually released some players early. Doesn't mean they will. Make sure you're staying tuned to SteelCurtainNetwork.com. We're going to have all that news as it unfolds there. And also, something else to keep in mind, folks. If they get down to 53, that doesn't mean that's your solidified 53. They very well could sign some other players from other teams. They could move players to injured reserve if there's an injury that's that bad. A lot of stuff can change, so make sure you're paying attention and staying tuned to all those different channels. So, all right, Dave, let's do some final thoughts here. This game in the second half was kind of a dud, but what are your final thoughts wrapping up the preseason and this week 3 game?
See, I didn't think the game in the second half was a dud. If you're looking at the offense, but my goodness, it was still exciting to see that defense go out there and have something to play for, to pitch this shutout. My goodness, this team as a whole over the last 2 games gave up 7 points. And that was when a bad snap went and the team recovered it at the 1 or 2 yard line. That's been it over 8 quarters. They held the Falcons to 40 yards rushing, under 200 yards passing. I mean, when you take away the sack yardage, I think it was, under 160 yards. It wasn't the starters, but it wasn't the Steelers starters out there the whole time either. The thing is with this team now, what they've done is they've showed you what they are capable of doing. So that's what they've done. Now, I'm not expecting a touchdown every drive or things of that nature, but you've seen what they can do. Now they have to do it when it matters most. And when it matters most is the regular season. Once again, you can't get to the regular season until you play the preseason, unless it's 2020. And you can't get to the postseason until you play the regular season. So you have to take the next thing that's up. This has to move into the regular season, and then just put that product out there on the field. Am I expecting it to be 100% of what we got here? No, but I mean but I wasn't expecting what we even had tonight to be what it was. So bring on the real football, and it's exciting to know what this team could do. Now all they have to do is show it.
Very good. Bryan, final thoughts on the preseason and this week 3 game.
Jeff, Dave, listeners, preseason was all about answering questions. And I think a lot of questions were answered over the last 2.5 weeks, or I guess we call them 3 weeks now. 3 weeks. So with that, here's what you need to know was answered. Question number 1. Can Kenny Pickett make that leap from year 1 to year 2? Kind of looks like he has already. Of course, this is all prefaced with we've got to see what they do in the regular season, and Dave just said that. Is the running game, is Najee Harris not what we thought he was when he was drafted in the first round? Is Jaylen Warren the better running back? No. They're both really good. You have very good running backs, and you have a third one in Anthony McFarland that if he doesn't make this team, man, you're hoping that Omar Khan has a deal lined up to trade him, because, I mean, he's going to get snapped up in a hurry. He has been wonderful. Can Calvin Austin come back from an injury? Well, they finally have a punt return game too. Even if he doesn't catch a single pass, you know this guy is going to be absolutely dangerous for this team in some way. Inside linebackers, that has been answered. Joey Porter Jr., that has been answered. There are no questions where, I don't know. Let's hope it gets better once the season starts. There is none of that. None whatsoever. So all of those questions that you have, when you feel that you have them answered going into the regular season, the big question is, can they keep it going? The biggest question is, are they for real? We can't really say that, but plus 54 point differential makes you think that this is for real. And the guy we're not even talking about because he's hardly playing, but when he's in there, that one catch that he gets on one target, Deontay Johnson looks like a superstar on first drives and even second drives if he's in there. So everything that we have asked is being answered. And so far the answers are, wow, they look for real. So that's what I wanted out of this preseason. I don't think I've ever left a preseason this encouraged before. And I'm talking Super Bowl years, because there's been a lot of preseasons when they lost a couple of games, and we know it's not about the losses, but when they hardly put up points. When the offense is putting up all of these points, and remember, the defense put up 0. The defense did not put up points. And when you're seeing a 92-yard drive, when you're seeing long plays that you don't see a lot of, that's when you get encouraged. So I'm done talking. Now let's see them continue to answer questions and let them do the talking.
All right, let's get Tom here. He says Tom plays games, gives us $2. Thoughts and prayers. I owe you all $1 in 17 days. Here we go. I hope you owe us $1 too, Tom. That would be a great way to start the season. So there you go. We're all fired up. Make sure you check out Steel Curtain Network, not just the website, steelcurtainnetwork.com, but all of our podcasts. Check out my Winners and Losers podcast tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. You also get a weekend with the homies, State of the Steelers. The Sunday Q&A will be there. All that great stuff will be right there for you wherever you get your podcasts. And then make sure on Monday you're ready to get that full slate, that full weekly slate again as we get you all geared up for the regular season. Here we go. Let's get another from Andrew Palladino, $4.99. He said, this sign-off is for Bryan. May the great master of all the Steel Nation be with us until we meet again. Good night, Steeler fans. Thank you for the tip. Couldn't have said it better. That is it better myself.
That is an ode to scouting as well.
There you go. I've never been one, so I wouldn't know. All right. Great show, guys. The next post-game show we have will be a little over 2 weeks away, which is tough to imagine, but nonetheless, we'll be here for you every step of the way. Thanks for listening. All right. We're getting out of here. We'll see you next time on another post-game show.
Curtain Network. Get it.
Everybody else gets a little tight.